When we talk about technology, we often get caught up in how. I know I have a tendency to get super excited about how things work, that how piece of things. But we don't just build cool tech just because it's cool. We build it to solve problems. That's especially important for technologies like blockchain, where there's this crazy hype cycle right now. And what really helps technologies like blockchain really come to life is understanding that why. And when I say why, I don't mean the understanding of why blockchain is cool or why BurstIQ uses blockchain to power life crafts. What I really mean is, why do we do what we do? What problems are we solving, and what impact are we having on real people? How are we helping people live their best, healthiest life? That's what this podcast is all about. I am so excited to have a conversation with BurstIQ partner and friend, Dr. Ann Ingraham. Dr. Ann is a health information and social technology strategist and an advisor to community-based organizations and community behavioral health organizations. She is a passionate advocate for the value that emerging technologies can offer and their ability to solve these deeply entrenched social and community problems. She is an author, a speaker, and the principal CEO at Exponential Health Tech Advisors, or EHT. Welcome, Dr. Ann, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to have a conversation with us.
Thank you so much, Amber. It's a pleasure. I am so honored.
So you have been advising and advocating for community-based organizations, and in particular, for individuals who are involved in the justice system. And you've been doing this for a very, very long time. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica in 1964 into circumstances where it truly took a small village of selfless people to care for me. I was raised in poverty, and without this community of people that cared enough to invest their heart and soul into me, I would have been a sheep amongst wolves. I have not personally been involved in the justice system. However, I understand some of the issues which are both personal, generational, and societal that lead to being negatively impacted by the justice system. Sometimes we take the wrong path and are led down the wrong path because of circumstances and decisions. Of course, some of those decisions were beyond our control. About 7 years ago, I met Anna Pereira, CEO of Anna Counseling and Employment at a Denny's. She was with a group of women and she walked over to me and asked if she could buy me breakfast. We struck up a friendship on that day. At that time, I just finished my contract with Sutter Health, deploying Epic systems to their 5 regions, which is about 24 hospitals at the time that I was there, and was awaiting my next assignment. So during this gap in employment, I awaited my quote unquote next assignment. Well, it just so happened that Anna and her team at Adonai Counseling and Employment, which is also a faith-based organization, needed some help. And so I came on board as their chief operating officer. This was my first exposure to a behavioral health organization and its impact on the community. Adonai not only provides mental health and substance use counseling, but also provides services to assist with employment, housing, transportation, and food, just to name a few. Basically, their services facilitated closing the gap and removing barriers to what's called the social determinants of health. A significant number of Adonai's clients are prior incarcerated, meaning justice impacted. Justice impacted individuals returning to the community with health or social barriers face significant challenges, and without the proper coordinated services, usually reoffend and return to incarceration. A statistic by the Urban Institute Justice Policy Center Research for Safer Community reported that more than 11 million individuals are incarcerated each year, and 96% return to the community. The report also stated that justice-impacted individuals with physical and mental health conditions are heavy consumers of health services. I also believe that there are no coincidences and that timing is everything. One milestone on my journey is the work done to achieve my PhD. You know, I actually attempted my PhD twice. My first time, I went 6 years. But the key takeaways from that experience are: one, be obedient, and two, make sure that what you do in your life is for the right reasons and with the right heart intentions. Well, in 2015, I restarted my PhD from the beginning and graduated this time in 2019. During this doctoral journey, I wasn't sure what my dissertation topic was going to be, but I knew it would center on technology adoption, specifically the electronic healthcare record system, or EHR, because I worked as a health IT consultant implementing the Epic EHR. The significance of my qualitative research, which was a phenomenological study, was to promote holistic patient care and to contribute to the digital care delivery. As I got closer to drafting my dissertation, my mom, who was ill with cancer, started to decline. It was a lot to see someone you love and who was strong and independent dying. It took a mental toll on me, on her longtime companion, and my brother. I also saw the gaps in interoperability when getting our records and coordinating care. Because of those challenges, I thought I would seek a study site which addressed psycho-oncology. The biggest challenge I encountered was finding a site that would say yes and give me at least 1 hour of each provider's time for interviews. I was stuck. It was depressing. However, a friend of mine connected me with a community behavioral health clinic in Washington State, and they said yes. It is because of those wonderful people why I was successful. This taught me that it only takes one person or one entity to say yes and to give of their precious time to help you succeed.
Oh my gosh, that is such an incredible story of perseverance. And I love how that really has kind of set up the work that you're doing today. So is all of that history and the energy that you put into caring for your mom and all of the work that you've put into your PhD, is that what led you to EHT? Is that why you started the company?
Yes. In doing my research, there were journal articles and findings by a couple of authors I'm going to call out, Cohen and McGregor and his co-authors, 2015, where they stated that there are 4 barriers to electronic healthcare record adoption. 1, lack of financial incentives. 2, lack of resources and technical expertise to implement and support the EHR. 3, lack of interoperability. And 4, concerns with ensuring privacy, confidentiality, and security of the patient data. Additionally, behavioral health was excluded from healthcare initiatives such as the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. Consequently, there are challenges to catch up to other specialty technically and to rapidly respond to the changing landscape of integrated primary care and their patient-centered care models.
That makes total sense. And that's certainly what we have found as well here at BurstIQ. So is that really what EHT is focused on? Are you really sort of tackling all of those challenges sort of head on?
Absolutely. In fact, our tagline on our website is Exponential Health Tech Advisors, transforming healthcare across delivery settings. We plan to use emerging health information technology to transform care and service delivery.
So that is a huge, huge undertaking. And I want to sort of narrow down a little bit, because you gave a couple of presentations recently, one at the Government Blockchain Association event, and a second one at the meeting of the American Council for Technology, the Industry Advisory Council. And in both cases, you talked about your work specifically with justice-involved individuals. In particular, you talked about the work that you're doing with 2 different community organizations, Ad and I being one of them, and they provide services to people who are incarcerated or coming out of incarceration. So can you talk about that collaboration in a bit more detail?
So both pilot sites are in Tacoma, Washington. Adonai Counseling and Employment Incorporated is a behavioral health organization. And then our second pilot, Fresh Start Professional Services, is a community-based organization. Adonai's services include alcohol and drug outpatient treatment, mental health services, counseling, employment services, domestic violence and anger management counseling. They also work with developmentally and learning disabled individuals to get them into employment and to improve their lives. They work with moms around parenting skills and doing workshops. They do re-entry services for justice impacted individuals. So they have a broad range of services. But I think a majority of their client population are individuals coming out of incarceration back into the community and have some involvement with the justice system.
That makes a ton of sense. And it really is so critical that they have this deep understanding of who a person is and all these different aspects of their life so that they can really understand how to best serve them. And all of that, you know, it really comes down to kind of understanding a person, understanding who they are and what makes them tick and how you can best help them in a way that that they will actually be most successful with. There are so many different organizations in the justice system that all have a role to play in helping people coming out of the justice system and helping them be successful and helping them live their best life. And really, data, and in particular, contextualized data, is so critical to that process, so critical to being able to meet people where they are and understand what their needs are and how to best serve those needs. So can you talk a little bit more about that digital divide and how that's really impacting both the organizations that want to help people and are trying to help people, but also individuals coming out of the justice system? What impact does that digital divide have?
As mentioned before, at the community level, right, because of the barriers we mentioned before, there is a lack of coordination. There is a lack of alignment because information is so siloed. So the challenge is that that gap, again, of that contextual data really hampers decision-making. And when you're talking about making decisions about individuals, it is imperative to have an understanding of their context. And so as people and myself make decisions, it is important to have an integrated view of that data to make the best decisions.
Highlighting the fact that all of the issues in healthcare around fragmentation and lack of coordinated, timely, and contextualized data, all of that is really magnified when it comes to the justice system, because you have this additional layer of process, an additional set of players in this space that have a role to play. And so I really kind of see, you know, you have this additional level of complexity where, you know, in healthcare, it's bad enough and it's causing enough problems. And yet when you think about healthcare and the provision of healthcare as part of the justice system, it becomes even more acute. So have you really found that to be true as you're working with organizations that work with justice impact individuals?
Yes, absolutely. It's worse and more complex, as you know, you said and can imagine. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, our laws lag the technology and needs. There are also certain legal data privacy protection for individuals with mental health and substance use challenges, as well as the stigma associated with these conditions, as well as being justice involved. So can you see the stacking, the layered barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The lack of financial incentives, the lack of resources and technical expertise to implement and support medical records, electronic medical records, the lack of interoperability, which is a big one, and for the concern for ensuring privacy, confidentiality, and security of the data. All these barriers present a perfect storm in an individual's life and their journey to wellness, as well as the need for providers having timely integrated data for quality decision-making and to ensure healthy and safe communities. In Jamaica, there's an old proverb that says, every mickle makes a muckle, which means that small things add up to large amounts, or small things when combined one by one can have a big effect.
I love that. That is such an awesome, awesome saying. I'm going to keep that one. So I want to talk about some of the real world examples. You had a couple of examples that you gave in your presentations that were very real and very heartbreaking. And I wanted to kind of talk about those a little bit, to kind of give our listeners a sense of what's the real world impact that this has, this lack of coordination and this lack of contextualized data. How does it really impact people in the real world?
Yes. There are so many stories, and the two use cases that we spoke about in the previous presentations definitely demonstrated real life situations. The first one resulted in a murder of 4 police officers in Lakewood, Washington in 2009 by someone who had a prior incarceration and had a history. And based on what I know, which I don't know the details, but that history may not have been communicated, or the monitoring may not have been done because potentially of this lack of seamless data share and integration. And so the individual who, from what I understand, had a mental health break, ended up murdering 4 police officers. That is heartbreaking in itself. Mm-hmm. Another example that we demonstrated was often an individual who suffers from serious mental illness, I believe schizophrenia. In her situation, based on my understanding, there was a total overutilization of emergency room services, to the point that in one county, she utilized emergency room services over 67 times in less than 90 days. Think about the cost of that.
Yeah.
In addition to that, she also overused other emergency services like calling 911, okay, over 80 times in 60 days. From what I understand, her caseworker and the clinic that she attended had no idea about this until the insurance company called and said, hey, did you know? So could these situations have been avoided with proper notification and intake, with coordination of services, with reduction in the delay of services? My belief is that yes, situations like these incidents can be avoided or minimized with the ethical use of distributed interoperable information technology to support just-in-time case management at the community level.
Mm-hmm. That makes a ton of sense. And really, in both of those cases, what I'm really struck by is that the need for care providers to have the information they need in order to intervene at the right time and with the right kinds of services. Mm-hmm. And really that lack of coordination creates this gap where, the pharmacy may know that the person hasn't filled their prescription, for example, but that's not being communicated in any way back to a provider. There may not be coordination between social services and medical services. All of those things really create these gaps that can lead to these really heartbreaking stories. So I want to talk a little bit about how you guys are solving for this. So you have a product called Axion Galaxy 360, and you are using LifeGraph as part of that solution. So can you tell us a little bit more about Axion Galaxy 360? What is it? What does it do? How is it addressing some of these problems, both in the short term and also kind of the long term of where the product is going?
Absolutely. So Axion Galaxy 360, in layman's term, it's really a case management solution, but it's even much more than that. So right now we've deployed our very first version 1.0.0 to our pilot sites. This current version includes basic case management functionality. So we have secure storage, we have the ability to exchange behavioral health data within the network, between those entities who have business associate agreements and are part of the ecosystem for providing care for that individual. We collect the social determinants of health data. We also include an appointment scheduling feature and an inventory management feature. And we also have a client portal. Our goal is to improve coordination, service delivery, alignment, timeliness, insights, and risk management. Again, the two use cases we talked about, potentially, like I said, if there were timely interactions, may have made a difference, okay? So we also are planning our functionalities in the next version, tools that will truly increase staff efficiency, give insights, and make decision-making more empirical, more data-driven, as well as using that data to improve overall quality in their service and care delivery.
What role does blockchain play in that? You talked about blockchain a little bit and the importance of blockchain, and I really loved what you talked about, really kind of leaning into Web3. But I wanted to sort of ask in particular, how are you guys using LifeGraph, and what role does LifeGraph play in the product? What does it let you do that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do?
Sure. As we lean into the future, the LifeGraph network provides several features that we would not have achieved by ourselves, for sure, okay? For one, the LifeGraph network ensures that there is a single source of truth for data. Right now, the way things are siloed at the community level, do you really know where your single source of truth is for the individuals that you're caring for? So we plan to have this framework, this network, as a trusted single source of truth. LifeGraph also has that smart data ecosystem to manage the population community-based organizations served, because it is HIPAA and SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. That is so critical, especially considering the type of data that we will be managing. And that was a big decision driver for us as we looked at utilizing different types of blockchains. BurstIQ's LifeGraph gave us a sense of surety that our clients' data will be safe and protected.
That's so amazing. Thank you. And I wanted to touch on something that you talked about a little bit, because, I know EHT is a new company. You guys are still relatively small. Mm-hmm. And so being able to really get up and running very, very quickly with all of the infrastructure you need around creating a source of truth for people involved in the justice system, around managing consent and compliance, regulatory compliance, your governance of all of that data, and all of the orchestration and process automation that is required for a solution such as Axion. And enabling all of those things together is a huge undertaking. So you guys went through that accelerator program, and I'd really love to get your feedback about if that was helpful, how it helped you, and what did that really provide for you guys?
Yes, the Accelerator program was very helpful. Being a member of the program provided us with the technical infrastructure and staff resources to collaborate with our developers and our chief digital officer to build Axion. This program allows us to at least be able to have one small impact on that individual.
I love that. And, you know, that really has been one of our primary drivers in creating the Accelerator program is, you know, we have a passion around helping solutions get out into the market that can help people. When you start making an impact, you know, that's ultimately, that's what we want. You know, that's our mission. It's to impact the lives of people in a really positive way. That's why we do what we do. One of the goals is to really start to bring forward health equity. And so I'm curious from your perspective, what does health equity look like for the people you are serving through EHT, people who are impacted by the justice system? What will this future look like where health equity truly does exist?
Yes. I actually am going to expand on that just a little bit. It's not just health equity, but service equity. So I will say health
absolutely.
and service equity,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that we're giving the clients the care and service that they need and providing care and service in a quality way that does not change because of their personal characteristics, such as their gender, ethnicity, geographic location, socioeconomic status, right? Basically, we are now better enabling customers like Adonai and Fresh Start to better satisfy and close the gaps in their clients' social determinants of health and in assessing their criminologistic risks and needs.
You talked about the impact that Web3 technologies will have in terms of how we can extend the value of products like Axion Galaxy 360 and move from a product-based economy to more of an outcomes-based economy, where we're really going to exactly what you've been talking about. In what ways will Web3 really empower people more fully?
Good question. So building on the tenets of Web3, we will utilize those capabilities to empower clients by shifting the locus of control of their data management and peer-to-peer data exchange, and possibly establish an economy where untapped potential can be released and redirected for good. This is truly about changing an individual's paradigm by making care and service delivery person-centered. I believe that where an individual starts doesn't have to define where they end up, and that we can leverage technology to drive self-determination and positive outcomes. I believe that the jails and prisons are also rich with untapped potential.
Yeah, and I think it's really so interesting, because what you're talking about in terms of that shift, that really mirrors the shift towards Web3, and not just Web3 technologies, although that's a huge component of it, but also this shift in a way of thinking, this shift towards trust and really openness and trust, and all of the technologies that support that are really kind of center to Web3. And that requires a new way of thinking. It requires a shift in the mindset from this sort of old model of data really being controlled by these silos that have a lot of inertia, and sort of want to stay siloed, both from a technology perspective, but also from a control perspective, and moves more towards this model of personal empowerment and ownership, and all of the intelligence power that can come from enabling people to actually use that data to benefit them, to help them live their healthiest, best life. And that's so consistent with what you're saying is going to be happening for people in the justice system. And so I that's such a powerful connection between what's happening in Web3 right now and the shift that we're seeing towards these trust-based data systems. Well, you have had such an amazing journey, and this is just the start of the journey for AHT. And I would love to hear, I mean, you've just managed to accomplish so much and have such an impact. And I would love for our listeners to hear from you, your pearls of wisdom for health organizations and tech companies and community partners who are just starting their journey. Can you offer them, some wisdom of what they can expect and what they should be prepared for?
Absolutely. Stay your course. Find that one, whether it be a person or an entity, that will say yes and just start.
That's perfect. That's the best advice. So I want to just end on that note, because that is just such a perfect note. I want to thank you so much for your time today and for your partnership with BurstIQ and your passion in helping to make a real impact in people's lives. We, as a society, as a world, we need more people like you, and we want to do everything we can to lift you up in your journey. BurstIQ will be right next to you, helping you as you progress, as you take on the world. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Ann.
Thank you. My pleasure. And I'm humbled and honored. Thank you.
And thank you to our listeners. Please stay tuned for our next podcast. And while you're waiting for the next podcast, please check out Dr. Ann's awesome presentations. They are both on YouTube. And we will provide links, I believe, with this podcast when it gets published. So thank you again. And we look forward to talking with you on our next podcast.